Good evening, fight fans. An impromptu Wednesday fight talk with myself, Jay's Fight Talk, and my No Punches Pulled co-host and good friend, boxing oracle, Liam Tully. How we doing, big man?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. It was cracking fights at lunchtime. I'm good to get some action. We've sort of been dry, haven't we, since the Usyk Fury? Which, okay, 3 weeks isn't a long time in fights, but it feels like it's been an eternity over the festive period. So good to get some action back underneath us.
Yeah, the sickening thing for me is I had an impromptu meeting and I was struggling to try to be present in said meeting whilst trying to watch what turned out to be a pretty decent fight card from the bits and spurts that I saw in the lead up to sort of the final 3 or 4 fights. I think it sort of built up to the crescendo, if we want to say that, with the main event. I think the main event and the co-main event were certainly had their moments. I think the show as a whole is, let's say, average, but I think because we've been starved, we were sort of a little bit more excited than we would have been if it was a normal Saturday card mid-year, maybe.
Yeah, look, let's give Tasmanian Fighting their dues. They put on a fantastic fight card with an atmosphere that was. So I turned on my DAZN with a cup of tea at about 8:15 this morning. So just as the broadcast was getting going, and it was rammed in there from early. The first few fights were 6-rounders. They weren't the best quality. They were sort of, warming the crowd up, so to speak. But rammed crowds, which added to the atmospheres, which the fighters fed off, and it just added to the level. And as the night built on and we drew closer to Justice Hooney and then on to Opetaia and Nyika, it just ended in a great crescendo. And obviously that stoppage in the main event, which I know we're going to come on to, was if it's not knockout of the year, there's going to be some seriously good knockouts this year. And I know we're only on the 8th of January, but that's an impressive finish from Opetaia.
I mean, for me, he could have been stopped the second his arm sort of caught the ropes to hold himself up. I think he took another clean shot that put him unconscious, and then I think Opetaia tries again with a left or right hook as he's sort of crumpling to the canvas. Absolutely full stop on that fight. I think that's the spite that I thought could cause him problems when I saw the interactions that they'd had midweek. Was the total polar opposite. It was the spite that caused him to look for that. You could see that. I mean, I've watched it back, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they threw a jab. I mean, maybe they started with a couple, but other than that, they just tried to take each other's heads off, which is exciting to watch as a boxing match. It's not the best, but as a fight fan that likes watching fights, it was a fantastic 4 rounds. I mean, it's up there for me as I think Nyika played his part as well. It's not it's like a football match when you see a score of 4-1 and you just assume one team got hammered. But in reality, when you watch it, it was fairly close. There's a couple of crappy decisions. And I think it was closer than just a 4-round blowout. I think Nyika did play his part and at times in the fight, certainly towards the end of the second. I wouldn't say he hurt Opetaia, but he certainly made him check himself. He felt it. And I think he came out in the third a little bit less gung-ho, a little bit more technical, even though, as I said, they weren't throwing many jabs and were sort of fighting. You could see that Opetaia, that had made him think. That minute in between rounds 2 and 3, I think he thought, man, I don't want to take too many of them because, he is only human and you take another one of them and it could be good night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I said to Sam when we were doing the watch along earlier on that Nyika had to come out and set a breakneck pace. He knows if you allow Jai to get into his rhythm and get into his flow, doesn't matter if he does it in the first round or in the 7th, once he's in it, he finds a way to break you down and stop you. So Nyika had to take chances. He had to set a high tempo and a high pace. And let's be honest, that was the best game plan he could have come out with. It made for a more entertaining fight. If he decided to shell up and cover a bit Jack Massey-esque back in October, then we probably would have seen a stoppage in 7, 8, 9, maybe even a decision, depending on how Opetaia chose to go about his work. So Nyika deserves credit. I mean, look, we said in the build-up, this kid has the potential to be a world champion. This opportunity just looks too soon. I feel like those claims are probably validated. Okay, he got completely sparked out and there were 5 minutes there that were a bit nervy when you were waiting for signs of him moving. But there's no reason why he can't go on to win the world title with Nyika. But
absolutely not.
It's another opponent in this division that has just been completely iced by him. And it's not an accident now. He sets the traps. He does the work. He knows when he draws an opponent in close, they drop their hands. He's always got that cheeky little uppercut that came from the first knockdown.
Yeah.
He's always got that there, hasn't he? He done something similar to Jordan Thompson for the first knockdown in their fight back in 2023 when he first fought over here. He's done similar with Jack Massey without knocking him down back in October. He just has the ability to get you where he wants you. And I agree with what you said, mate. The finish, Nyika took one, possibly two punches he didn't need to take.
Yeah, but you know, it is what it is. I think it's about time I just admitted defeat and probably jumped on the bandwagon. I've sort of not dismissed him as not being as good as what we've been told, but I've been waiting to see it. And you know, Nyika isn't necessarily the world's best opponent, but what I saw from him earlier on today, I keep waiting for him to be tested, and he can't get tested because he is, I think, that good. I just think he is that good, and I think it's about time that people did actually take notice. I know that Eddie Hearn is lauding him as you know, the second coming of Usyk and potentially the man that could beat him, and a lot of people, you know, he doesn't possibly get a lot of props from everybody. I've certainly not been a hater, and I've never dismissed his skill set, but I've always been sort of underwhelmed, just
reserved. You've never gone the full hog.
Yeah, I've never gone the full hog, and I'm like that anyway. You know me, so you know that I'm difficult to sort of impress in that respect. But I saw something different from him. As I said, I saw something in terms of I thought I'd seen maybe a chink when he got so really angry. Nah, I think he just got focused, and I think Nyika's team were proved right, weren't they? He wasn't ready for it. He wasn't ready for it. Big up Jams. Thanks for joining us, brother. I think he was pissed off that Nyika thought he could beat him. I think he knew that was going to happen. He'd said, you know, I'll smash you in. I think I changed my prediction and went for points. I think you and Sam went a little bit later, I believe. I can't remember. I know you both
went stoppage in 7. So that's why I went for stoppage in 7.
And I think I changed my mind. And I think initially I'd said he'd blow him out of there, and then did a little bit more research and changed my mind and thought he'd take him points. He actually boxed completely different to how I thought he would. I thought he'd box similar to what you said. Not so much tuck up and hide, but try to box at range, try to keep away from him a little bit longer while he sort of tested the water and found his rhythm, took a few, but he just went straight for it. And look, we've got to give him props for that. He showed absolutely no fear. Right, Jai Opetaia could potentially do that to anybody because he does hit really hard. You know, I'm really impressed. Really impressed. You know, who am I? It doesn't mean up to him, but just for me, I've seen a different side to him. I thought he'd not be in trouble, but I just thought it'd be a lot harder for him to manipulate. To you could see during the third round that he was just not toying with Nyika, but making Nyika do exactly what he wanted him to do. Like you said, he was manipulating him into space. He was using his footwork. He was using angles. He did a little bit of feinting, but ultimately got done what he said he was going to get done. He said, look, this fight will not go the distance. I will smash him up. I will knock him out. He left him unconscious. Like you said, for a couple of minutes there, I was like, oh, shit. Is he okay? He is, you know, and I think he's posted on social media.
We've seen the video of him and Jai backstage. Yeah, there's been interaction. But yeah, mate, it's one of those. Look, you boys both know how high I am on Opetaia. I think it was our very first no punches pulled. I said, I believe he'll become undisputed at cruiserweight and then go up and at least win belts at heavyweight. I didn't go as far as saying undisputed at heavyweight, but I said win the belts. And look, he's gone out and okay, Jack Massey and Nyika aren't world beaters, but he's gone out and dealt with them emphatically. We know Zerdo's looking likely for the 7th of May, I think it is. And then after that, if it's Baddy Jack that's got the WBC belt, for me, he deals with Baddy Jack, regardless of what we think of Baddy Jack as an opponent. If that's what he's got to do, for me, the unification train is rolling, and I'm you know, the Jai Opetaia fan club in the UK, I'm happy to head it up because I've always been a big fan of him, and he's vindicated it in what he's done again tonight, because that could have been a tricky night's work for him. You think of other fighters that are champions, and we know they've got unification fights on the horizon. They make a tougher meal of their fight beforehand, don't they? We've seen it time and time again in boxing over the years. None of that from Opetaia. My only criticism is he was loading up and winging punches in from the first round. That's very un-Jai-like, if that makes sense. And he didn't actually box to his jab, and he probably will when he watches the tape back. He'll probably be pissed off.
I think a bit pissed off, giving himself.
That's not how he fights. But when he turned that switch, he came out at the start of round 4, and anyone that was on the watch along earlier or watches it back, I picked up on it. I said he's turning up the gears here. He's obviously wants to now put the heat on Nyika and show him that there's a level to it. And he may not have been aiming to get the stoppage in the 4th round, but he got that half opening, took it, and then the finish was ruthless. Look, it's on the blind side of the referee, David Fields, so maybe Fields can't see this slump position of Nyika from before that last punch. That's my defense for the referee. Because you know it's on his blind side, all he's seeing is Nyika looks like he's tucked up. We can see from the camera that he's already
holding himself up. And he's sort of slumped.
But that last,
I think he was semi-conscious, maybe.
Yeah, until that last short cross left landed. When that landed, that was lights out, face first, and it was emphatic. And Opetaia's kept hold of his belt without being stripped again. You know, the attitude of I'm not allowing myself to be stripped again has paid off, because now we can move into Zerdo without any delay because there's no injuries and the hype train's rolling.
Yeah, it felt like a fuck you sort of statement. Like, fuck you. There you go. There's my defense. Done. Give me my belt. On to the next. And I'm not being dismissive of Nyika, because I was bigging him up and saying he was going to give him, you know, rounds. But it felt like it started in first gear, right? And got into second gear. And I think once he got into second, he knew that's all he needed. And once he knew that was all he needed, he took that shot in the second. And it was a clean shot. And he felt it, right? I'm not going to say he was hurt. There's only he knows that. But he definitely felt it. But then came out in the third. And like you said, towards the end of the third, he started upping it and throwing a few more combinations. Came out in the 4th, and it were like he'd thought, do you know what? I'm going to put it on him now and just see. Like you said, maybe didn't purposely look for the stoppage, but turned up the heat to see if Nyika could stay with him, because they started at a frenetic pace for cruiserweights. It was fast, you know, really fast. And Nyika's he's potentially a heavyweight down the line. You know, he was taller than Opetaia, and I think he weighed slightly more, only a bit. But I think
it was like 0.2, 0.3. It was minimal.
Wasn't much. But yeah, I agree. I think Opetaia had further gears, but I think once he knew he wasn't in that much trouble, I think he just turned it up a little bit, and we saw what happened. I mean, you know, that would have potentially knocked out anybody, that, because he was unchallenged. The last shot was unchallenged. If it hadn't been on the blind side of the ref, he might have stopped that once he could see that he was sort of holding himself up.
The thing now is he's knocking out legitimate cruiserweights. So the Ellis Zorro first round icing back in December last year, what he's done to Nyika lunchtime today, he's doing that to legitimate cruiserweights. You're now going to put him in there with Zerdo Ramirez, who, let's be honest, is a lazy 160, 168. If we're being really
max
honest.
For me.
Yeah,
he's not even a light heavyweight, is he?
He looked cooked at 175 against Bivol. I mean, he looked cooked before he fought Bivol at 175, but Bivol had the skills to pay the bills to, you know, inflict damage on him. Look, famous last words for this to get clipped up back in May after when it happens, but that power on someone like Zerdo is dangerous, and that's the difference. Opetaia probably walks around at 240, 250, if we're being honest. He's already up at the heavyweight level. He's bringing himself down to do what he's doing in this division. Even Badou Jack, who's a 168, where he had his best days of his career, we all know he took the Maccabi fight because he was offered the money, and Maccabi was, yes, a dangerous puncher, but he didn't have anything as a boxer to trouble Badou Jack. The two champions are not legitimate 200-pound fighters. Jai Opetaia could make very easy work with those two unification fights this year and could become an undisputed champion at a canter. And that's not just my... I love.
No, you're not being dismissive.
No, it's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I actually think, and people will probably clip this up and hit me with it if the fight ever happens, but I actually think Badu Jack will be a more difficult fight than Ramirez. And bear with me, I'm not saying that Badu Jack's better than Ramirez. I think Badu Jack defensively is better than Ramirez. He's out of that Floyd Mayweather gym, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's very good defensively. I think Badu Jack could possibly take Opetaia rounds. And I mean, has Badu Jack been knocked out? I think he's been stopped, but I don't think he's been knocked out.
I don't think he's been knocked out.
Because he's got that sort of Philly shell. He's adapted the Philly shell. He's really good defensively. I think he could be a trickier fight there, if we say. Not a harder fight, a more difficult fight, but a trickier fight to find. And Nyika wasn't hard to find, was he? He wasn't. No. His chin was not hard to find this afternoon.
He has been stopped before. Sorry, Badu Jack, back in 2018.
No, I said he's been stopped. I don't think he's been knocked out, though, has he? Has he been flat?
No, this is a TKO. So what does this say? He was knocked down twice and then waved off. So yeah, he was knocked down, but then he stopped on his feet.
Who was the defeat to?
Derek Edwards in the first round at 168.
Okay. I think I vaguely remember that fight. I think it was a tune-up, meant to be a tune-up
fight.
Yeah,
it was meant to be a tune-up
fight or something like that, and it just went badly wrong. I think he got caught, they say caught cold, but yeah.
Put it this way, sorry, mate. 2 fights after that, he beat Durrell to become a world champion. So that's, he had to take a bit of a detour from it. But yeah, he's not fought since Makabu. He's 41 now. By the time he fights, Billam Smith, potentially, he'll be 42. He's having another birthday probably before that fight rolls around at the end of the year. And he hasn't fought since Makabu, which was 2023. It doesn't bode well. And we know what life is living in Dubai.
Just give him the belt. Yeah. Wish him, give him congratulations. Wish him all the best in his next unification fight, and save yourself a good hiding. I don't think that Badu Jack needs the dough. I don't think he needs the cash grab. He lives a good life. He's been in on that Saudi and Dubai money since forever, hasn't he? He was one of the first fighters to really go over there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved at some stage, in terms of maybe he might get an ambassadorial role at some stage within.
If he doesn't have one already, kind of
thing.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah. I think he's in with the click, so to speak. For me, it's a risky fight, very risky fight for Badu Jack in terms of what he's just done to Nyika. I know I've just said that he could potentially avoid getting knocked out, but he's 42. Like you said, he's going to be 42. What's Opetaia is 20 odd.
29.
He's a young man. Yeah, he's a young man in comparison. A young man that's on an absolute tear. Look, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Alexander Usyk. I still don't think he beats Usyk. I just think Usyk's too clever for him. I think Usyk will make him miss a lot. But the fight is being talked about now because it's potentially the biggest fight out there for Usyk. Who's bigger at the moment?
Look, prime for prime, Usyk beats Opetaia all day long. I will happily say that. However, if Usyk stays around for another 18 months, 2 years,
that's
Opetaia moves up. That's when it becomes a more level playing field. That's when you favour Opetaia. But if they make it this year, Alexander Usyk is an overwhelming favourite. But I don't think we'll ever see that fight because I think Usyk rides off into the sunset.
I don't believe Usyk is going to take any unnecessary risks now. If he fights again, it will be a cherry pick. Not so much a cherry pick. Not a cherry pick as such, but he might do the Dubois rematch because Dubois did, jumped in the ring and
pissed him off. Yeah.
Pissed him off. Yeah. So I think, to prove a point, sort of, it was a fluke, was it? Oh, it was a body shot. Right. Okay. Try this one on for size. And I think he'll stop him again. I know Dubois improved and he did what he did to Joshua, but Joshua's nowhere near as good as Usyk, and he's proven that. And to be fair, I think Joshua's on the slide, and I think that helped Dubois. I know I picked Dubois, but I would have picked anybody, and I'm not a Femi fan, so I would have potentially picked anybody anyway. But no, I wouldn't. Realistically, I don't think we'll see the fight either. I mentioned it because it's getting talked about even more. So I think Eddie Hearn
mentioned it in the ring.
Yeah. I don't think Usyk, like you said, he knows his own limitations, and he'll know if he's losing a step. you can afford to lose that step at heavyweight in a certain degree. But when you go back down to cruiserweight, they are that little bit sharper, that little bit faster. So if he has, like you said, lost that little edge or starts to decline, that's when that fight evens out. And I would hate to see that happen to Usyk. I'd hate to see Usyk go out like that, face down, arse up. It's not nice for anybody. Doesn't need
he doesn't
it,
deserve
though,
it. It's not.
Don't need it, does he? Really, if we're honest.
Understand why it's being spoken about, because arguably it is probably the best test out there for him. It's the best from his old division, and it's the newest talent. Because look, he's done Fury twice, he's done AJ twice, he's done Dubois once. I don't, Joseph Parker, if Parker beats Dubois, which I think he will do next month, that's my pick. That's a new opponent for him, but even then, I still put Usyk above Parker. That's still another very convincing performance from Usyk. So if I can understand why it's being talked about, but mate, we don't need to see it. By the time Opetaia clears up a cruiserweight, Usyk will probably be retired. I
want him to retire. I think the Fury fight was the rubber stamp on it. He beat him the first time, and he beat him the second time. You can call it whatever I scored it a draw, I think, in the moment, and I think I've scored it twice since and given it both times to Usyk. So for me, Usyk has beaten the best of the rest twice each, in AJ and Fury. There's nobody really. I know people will say Bakoli and blah, blah, blah. They've not earned their shot really at Usyk. Bakoli's earned a shot at a champion, but not the champion. There's a difference. Usyk is the man, and you have to earn that. Get yourself into the mandatory position and then negotiate the fight. He's not going to take a fight like that. So for me, I'd like to see him ride off into the sunset, and then maybe we do see Opetaia unify. Because like you said, just going back to Ramirez and Badou Jack, I think he cleans them two out. I nearly said earlier on that he could potentially book both fights for the same night or consecutive nights, but I didn't want to be any more of a prick than I am normally. I don't think it's that easy for him, but I would not bet against him in either of those fights. And then, like you said, maybe he moves up and starts to challenge the big boys. But like you said, he's a lump himself, so it's maybe not that much of a jump for him up to heavyweight.
Mate, I don't believe it is a jump for him. I think when he does move up, it will be similar to when Usyk moved up. So he'll sit on his WBO champion status. He'll take a couple of fights, so he adjusts to heavyweight, and then he'll activate it like Usyk done with AJ. Usyk fought Chaz Weatherspoon and Chisora, and then went, right, I'm activating my WBO champion clause now, and Opetaia will do something similar. Regardless, say Dubois has got 3 of the belts at that point, and it's Dubois that's got the WBO. He'll be confident to do it against Dubois. If it's a Talma, Bakoli's, it doesn't matter for me who it is in 24, 36 months' time. I think Opetaia will feel comfortable against any of them, which is ultimately how Usyk felt when he done it against AJ, and he, and he outpointed him at Spurs. He took that opportunity because he knew what he could do.
He knew. One of my favorite photos of all time is Usyk in the crowd when AJ is celebrating and he's got his hood up.
With the hood on.
And everyone's going crazy and he's just stood staring. What a photograph, because he's looking, thinking, yeah, that's mine.
Yeah. So I was at Spurs that night when he fought AJ. Got really lucky with good tickets from a mate on the day of the fight. Was meant to be going to the pub, ended up there to watch it. And I was close enough in the stadium to be able to appreciate it on the night. Yeah. And I left that stadium, obviously went in wanting AJ to win, being a Brit, knew how good Usyk was, but just is he going to be able to make the step up as a heavyweight?
You saw it.
Left the stadium, stood up and applauded him whilst people were chucking beers down at me and my mates around us as we were applauding Usyk at the end, which sums up a boxing crowd. But the reality is I've realised I've seen a very, very special fighter that night. Always loved Usyk for what he done in the Super Series, but seeing him in person that night and being, reasonably close, like I could make out what was happening in the ring, didn't need the screens, just amplified my appreciation of him, and I've been the same ever since. I've had another level of respect after getting to see him up close.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the fighters that I'm gutted I've not seen live, just to be able to appreciate his skill set live. I know it, because it translates different when you see it live, because you see things you don't necessarily see on. Sometimes you get a better view on the TV, but if you've got good enough seats, you can appreciate it and see things different. I've watched fights live and then drove home and watched it again and seen a completely different fight. And I've been ringside watching it, and I'm like, what the hell? You know, because you see it different angles. You know, the camera angles are different. So yeah, I'd love to. I don't think I will now because I don't think we've got him around for long. But anyway, so that's the main event. We've covered the main event. Should we talk about the co-main event? It didn't last that long. I think we'd all picked. I think I picked 3 rounds. I think.
I went 2. I did go. I went back and checked. You went 3.
Did I?
Yeah, I got it bang on. I went 2.
I mean, yeah, there's not much to. I mean, I know I said let's talk about it, but there's not a right lot to say, really, is there?
I mean, to be honest, I lost all interest in it when after the fight, Hooney's doing his interview. I went, Sam, like we do sometimes. Let me mute my sound. Let's see. You know, he wants to get back out to Saudi. Let's see what he says. And he's standing there looking forlorn, almost as if he's just lost the fight. Is how his body language looks. And he went,
"Okay,
well, I'm injured, mate. You're not going to see me. You're not going to see me now for the rest of the, till the back end of the year." And I saw all the face. I'm used to it. I went to Sam and went, he's literally just said he's injured. We're not going to see him till the back end of the year. So then you go to yourself, why has he gone from fighting last month against the Pudding to fighting this month against the Pudding whilst injured instead of taking the time to get the injury sorted so he could
heal himself?
So, Justice Hooney is exciting, can be a problem. But I've lost all interest after that post-fight interview. It's just like, oh, right, so we're not going to get to see you against a Talma or Fisher.
He shouldn't have fought then, should he, really? He shouldn't have fought, like you said. He should have just healed up. Because I thought this was going to be a fight to call out the likes of...
That's why I wanted to listen to what he said, mate.
Torres. You know, the guys around his sort of level, fringe.
Makhmudov, that sort of level, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and instead we get a damp squib where he's saying, like, you know, I'm injured, you know, see you at Christmas sort of thing. And we're in January, for God's sake. Did he say what the injury was?
No, but they then showed him backstage after the fight, and there was ice pack and strapping on his elbow. So assume it's an elbow injury, but it's just a weird one because obviously this Tasman Gold Star Matchroom Partnership, they're going to do 4 more cards this year. So March the 22nd, I'm not sure if you saw that this morning, they're talking about the Cambosis Jr., Sky Nicholson, etc., etc. That's when they're talking about the next one being a big stadium fight in the summer. I would assume that plan was to be Liam Parrow. Maybe it still is the plan to be Liam Parrow.
Might be a rematch, maybe.
Possibly. And then they've got 2 planned for the back end of the year. So Hooney was in a position to get himself back out in March and then take bigger fights in the summer. But now, just all the interest is gone. Jeremiah was more exciting for me because you saw the performance. He rocked the mic. And Eddie's as good as said he's getting out in March. So we know we're going to see him again.
And I mean, what kind of injury keeps you out for 10, 11 months?
Depending on what it is.
That you've boxed with. Do you get what I'm saying? Even a torn rotator cuff, you're talking 6 months. You know,
you just got to hope he's being overly pessimistic and it's not as bad as it's made out to be.
Think he's trolling?
Look, the way his body language was, it was literally as if he regretted fighting. I'm not sure if Jams is still in the chat. Jams was doing a watch along, obviously, on Boxing Media Hub, but I interpreted it as he regretted the fact he's fought.
Okay.
Which is just, it was very weird. And even Eddie Hearn, he normally, when he's building up his heavyweights or fighters in any division, will say, look, we're going to get them out by X day. Even Eddie went, we're not sure when it's going to be because of this injury, but it will be towards the end of the summer. And you look at it and go, just all very strange. So yeah, my excitement for what I was hoping to see from Hooney by the summer, gone, mate. Because I thought we might get Johnny Fisher, we might get Torres, we might get Makhmudov, someone on that level. But now it's like,
well, just on something you've said there. Sorry to flip flop, but you mentioned him, Johnny Fisher. I've just listened to an interview with his dad, and he's talking about he doesn't even know if he'll fight again.
Johnny was on the DAZN broadcast earlier, and he was asked outright, "Look, what's your plans for this year? There's talks that you might take a fight, then take Dave Allen. You might go straight into Dave Allen." And he said, he as good as said without saying it because he's being careful so he can't come back on him. If it's up to him, Dave Allen rematch is for springtime. That's how he sees it. In his own head, he wants to right the wrongs. So he wants March.
So the next one.
So he wants He wants to go straight back in.
Well, his dad did sit. Yeah, his dad, I don't think his dad knew what day it was. He went on saying how clever Johnny was and he could do anything he wants and, he might not box again, and then said he wanted the Allen rematch next. He still thinks he won it. He tried to justify it. He said he won the first 4, then he won 6 or 7 in round 10. No.
Johnny, as good as said today, look, he admitted how tough a fight it was. He admitted he possibly underestimated what Allen had left. He admitted the issue with his eardrum affecting him, which is fine because we haven't heard that from him before. He's almost,
perforated
when that question was asked of him, he's batted it away. But he said it was a hard fight, and he's admitted that he knows he needs to prove that he can deal with that level.
Is that the international sign for batting it away, yeah?
Batting it away, it's a bit of a straight arm, mate. But he's as good as said, look, I know if I want to progress, I now need to right this wrong. And he also knows that whether they make it at the Copper Box or the O2, it does good numbers and it makes sense.
It's a big fight, man. It's a big dimension.
If they want to do the O2, they need to do it on a good card. Like they will need to do a better undercard. The Copper Box, that sells out the Copper Box by itself. The O2 will need some decent fights on the undercard because you're not going to get 20,000 just for that.
What does the Copper Box hold? 5 or something like that?
8.5.
8.5. I'd have it there, me. I'd have it there.
I think that makes sense, but it depends how, Eddie's committed to doing better quality of UK shows this year, which would lean towards the O2. So that's fine as long as it is a good quality show. It's on.
Yeah, but like you said, it's tough.
It's the next gen.
It's tough to fill. I mean, I've been to some big shows at, say, like the Manchester Arena, which is a similar size.
You've got the curtains
one,
across.
The old one. Yeah, and they have the old
NEN, whatever it is.
Yeah, because it's tough. There's not many people sell out a 20,000 venue. It's hard to do, man. 10,000 is a lot of tickets to sell. I think Crawler used to regularly sell out at least 50% of the Manchester Arena, the MEN as it was.
So the context on that, Jack Catterall, I saw something the other day, he done just over 8,000 tickets at the new arena for his fight against Prograis. That's where he's at. And he's, by all accounts, he's aiming to get towards 10,000 for the fight against Barbosa in a few weeks' time.
I mean,
so that's
and that says a lot because a lot of people have said, Mr. Boring, not me.
Yeah.
And he can't sell tickets. I mean, to do 8,500 against Regis Prograis is not bad because very few people, no disrespect, not many people know who Regis Prograis is.
Yeah.
People would walk past him in the street. And also Jack Catterall's he's not a casuals favourite, so to speak. There's, and I'm trying to be as respectful as possible because I love Jack. I'm a massive fan.
We're the same. We've had this conversation, haven't we?
So I'm a massive fan. I think I first met him in 2013 in the crowd at, it was Amir Khan versus, I want to say Diaz.
Is that the one in Sheffield when Wilder came over and fought Harrison?
Wilder fought Harrison.
Yeah.
Terry Flanagan fought Nate Campbell. I ended up random night, right? So my son's got disability and he's had a kidney transplant, but we use it to our advantage, right? So I got the discounted disabled seats, right? But they put us in anyway. We were miles from the front, and I paid like $250 a pop for them. They weren't cheap, do you know what I mean? But all it was, we just had a load of space round us. But my son's not in a wheelchair.
Yeah, you had the extra space. Yeah,
he's able-bodied. We didn't need it, so we ended up sort of working our way down, and we ended up sat with. I was in between Darren Fletcher and the other Scottish kid that played for Man United. Fletcher and God, who was the other one? Anyway, I was sat with Jolyon Lescott, Darren Fletcher, another footballer for Man United. I can't remember. Was it Carrick? Not Scottish. It might have been Carrick. I've got some photos somewhere. And I think it was the guy who does the Formula One. Is it Dan Walker? The tall guy.
Dan Walker, he used to be Formula. Yeah.
He does Match at Day 2 and that sometimes.
Yeah.
He does sport.
That's Dan Walker. Yeah, Dan Walker.
Ended up sat with them. And then went out after for a drink with Nate Campbell. He was just buying everyone drinks. But it was a random show. But yeah, that was, I think Jack boxed on that, like in the early prelims. I think he won, is it the Southern Area belt that's right big and it's like wavy?
Yes, all the areas, Central, Southern, they're all like that, yeah.
He had that. I think it was that or a Celtic title or something. And I met him then. I didn't really know who he was. because he was a novice at the time, a novice pro. And then my lad said, "Oh, watch his fight back," and I watched his fight back, and I thought, "Oh, this kid's good." Do you know what I mean? And I've sort of followed his career since then. That's 11 years ago, but yeah, to do 8,500 tickets there is decent. So I mean, yeah, I think he'll do 10 for the Barbosa fight. I think it's doable.
Yeah, I think that's the target, and you've got Will Crawler, so you got Ant Crawler's brother who's doing around 500 or 600. I saw an interview of him saying his numbers are good, and you've got Michael Gomez Jr. So yeah, anyway, this topic about arenas. I mean, that new arena is huge. They're not going to sell it out, but I reckon they'll push 13, 14K maybe, which considering the show was given 5 weeks notice would be good numbers.
Random question, you might know the answer, but what are they doing with the other arena? Are they keeping them both, or are they going to shut the other one down?
No idea, mate. They're still using it for shows and different bits and pieces, but I think
because the infrastructure around it, they can't just shut it down. It's got a train station in it.
It's got yes, attached to a station. I believe it's staying intact, mate. But look, I mean, you've got boxing shows on consecutive weekends there. You've got Chisora, Wallin, and then this Casserole fight. So they're not using each. Yeah, not sharing the arenas anymore by the looks of it, which is a shame because I've never been. Manchester's a city I definitely want to go up to for a fight, and it's going to happen.
Have you not been?
Not Manchester. No, I've done Liverpool, but not Manchester.
We'll have to go.
Yeah,
and we'll have to go.
Mate, it's on my list to do.
There. Yeah, I've been to loads there. I think one of the best fights I've ever seen there. I was ringside for Crawler and John Murray.
Yeah.
What a fight that was. And I know them both as well. I was gutted. I actually thought John were going to beat Anthony just because Anthony was still on the come up. He wasn't the Crawler we know. And John was... I was there when John was the British European. He was the man. He was trying to fight Amir Khan, and I still had that in my head. I couldn't see past that, and I was fearful for Anthony. And he sort of dealt with John. Really, he dealt with him. But anyway, look, I think we've covered enough.
Covered it.
We're digressing. Anything else to add on today's fights?
No, mate. I'm other than Terramaya got it done in 46 seconds, and. Okay, temper it with who the opponent was, but that left hand, it's the same shot he landed in Monaco. It's a vicious shot.
Who do you think he'll fight next?
I'm not sure what they're going to do with him, but Eddie said it's going to be a 10-rounder in March. So there's an indication. If it's going to be a 10-rounder, they're going to move him at a nice lick.
Tell you what was random. They had Volk on...
They had everyone, mate. They had everyone coming to him.
I saw Sky and Volk. Because I heard the voice. So I was in a meeting. But I had one of my headphones in and I thought, am I on the wrong? Is that Volk? And I looked and I thought, I recognise that. And then I looked and there he was. And they actually started asking him about his, when you're fighting next, you look fit. And which I thought was a bit random. They don't normally, especially Eddie, doesn't really like having people on that are not linked to either DAZN or Matchroom, really, does he? He's a bit
but you saw like Eddie posted a photo and a story on his Instagram with Volk as well. So mate, it was a very random broadcast, but I enjoyed it actually watching.
Do you think, sorry to cut you, but do you think that's got something to do with the Saudi Riyadh UFC link?
I don't know what you're possibly talking about, mate. Not a clue. Yes, I do think there's something
bubbling. There's something bubbling in there, crossover fight, or there's a co-pro, or there's something in there.
I think a co-pro, mate. I think a co-pro is where. Anyway, that's the conversation for another time. But a co-pro, I think, is the way it's going.
But yeah, thank you very much for joining me, brother. I really appreciate that. It's been a pleasure as always.
Anytime, mate.
Are we going to be doing a watch along on Saturday?
Yes, mate. We're going to do Caroline Dubois, and we're going to do the main event, aren't we? Which is
I think it's just me and you. I'm not sure Liam's with us. Liam is somewhere in the Caribbean at the moment. Sam. Sorry.
Mate. It's just me and you. It will just be the two of us.
And you. So you will catch us on Jay's Fight Talks YouTube channel on Saturday night for Caroline Dubois, Jessica Kamara. And then we're going to cover the co-main event, which will see Callum Simpson. I nearly called him Callum Wilson then for a split second. Callum Simpson takes on Steed Woodall, who has an extensive amateur career and has boxed in America. For anybody that didn't know, I've now been told. But no, looking forward to those two fights. Thanks for joining us. If you want to catch me on socials, it's Jay's Fight Talk. We've got Liam_Tully9 on X. You can catch. Have you got your show tomorrow, or has it gone out today? Have you not?
No show. First show will be in 2 weeks, which will be Dalton Smith, Inoue, and Diego Pacheco. So
But
look
if you
forward to
want
that
to
in 2 weeks'
catch
time.
the back catalogue of Liam's Fight Night picks, you can catch that over on I always get this wrong, STBX, Steve Talks Boxing X YouTube channel or socials. Liam's socials are up there as well. Thanks for joining us as always. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you all on Saturday night. Thank you very much.
Cheers, everybody.